Hello, I'm Dr. Adrian Marsden. I work at the Castle Museum in Norwich. I'm a numismatist, that's a coin specialist. And today I'd like to talk to you about these two hoards we have here, small hoards of Roman coins known as Radiates. These, as you can see, are hoards. They're assemblages of coins. There are about 100 in each group, a few more. Now, they went into the ground together. We know they were separated by agricultural activity. You've got ploughshares and other agricultural machinery turning over the soil constantly. So a bag of coins will get dispersed. The cloth that makes the bag will rot, or if they're in a potted bag, will get broken by the plough, and then the coins are scattered over an area, not normally a massive area, but they will move with the soil as the soil is itself moved. These are both hoards of irregular radiates, these radiate made to imitate the official coinage. They are a lot smaller. The official stuff is a lot larger, about the size of a penny in today's money. These are a lot smaller. You can see tiny things. The interesting thing is these two hoards were found about 6 miles apart, one at West Acre and one at East Winch. A radiate is a Roman bronze coin of the 3rd century. Now, these start out as being a double denarius, and the denarius is a silver coin, but you've got plenty of problems in the 3rd century in the Roman Empire. You've got internal war, civil war, you've got rampant inflation, and because of the rampant inflation, you have a massive debasement of the coinage. So what starts out in about 215 AD as a silver coin, about the same size as a modern 10p piece, becomes a bronze coin with about 1% silver. Now, because these coins are worth so little, because they're just small bronze coins, you need an awful lot of them to make any sort of purchase, to carry out any sort of financial transaction. So you need lots and lots of them, and despite the fact that they're making many millions of them, they're still not enough to service the needs of the population at large. And so people have to make their own. The emperor's portrait wears a radiate crown, and that's basically a crown of spikes. This derives from the sun god Apollo, who has a crown of solar rays erupting from his forehead, and so this becomes a sort of crown. We don't think emperors actually wore these crowns, but they're more symbolic, and they denote a double denarius, a double. They are also used on other coins to have a double significance. Now, this spiky crown is very distinctive, and even on these very small irregular radiates, you can see it. So it means these are easy to recognise as radiates. We must always remember that we see these coins here, they're green, brown, they're quite grubby in the case of the East Winch coins. But when these were new, they would have been a golden colour. They're made of bronze, so a bright yellowish colour, depending how much zinc and other things you've got in the mix. If they're a brass type alloy with zinc in, they will be a really bright buttery yellow. So they would have looked very different to how they look today. These have been in the ground for many centuries, and they've patinated. And interestingly, they've patinated in slightly different ways. The West Acre coins here are a more uniform greenish, but the East Winch coins have got lots of what we call iron pan on them. They've got these reddish iron deposits, really crusty, and that's because the soils at the two sites where they're found, despite them being only about 6 miles apart, are clearly different. You've got an iron component in the soil here at East Winch, which doesn't seem to be present at West Acre. we have good reason to believe that these were both produced, or the coins within them were produced by the same people. One way we can see that was the case is that some of them are struck from the same pair of dies in both groups. Now, the coin dies used to strike coins, there are two of them, the lower die and the upper die. Both ends have a design engraved. You sandwich the coin between them and you hit it with a hammer to make the coin. Now, since each die is engraved by hand, each die is very slightly different, the engraving on it. And so when you can see two coins and inspect them closely and then see that they're from the same pair of dies, they're said to be die linked. And that means that they originated in the same workshop. They're produced by the same dies. This is unusual, but when you get two groups like this and you can see that this die linkage exists, you can see that both groups, both manufacturing groups, were produced by the same people. There's many ways of producing the blank from which you strike a coin, the disc of metal that you put between the dies. Now, some of the coins in West Acre have got these flat, sharp edges, and it looks like these have been clearly cut from a sheet of metal. You've simply got a chisel and you've hacked them out. Now, that's one way of making a blank. Another way is with the little ball bearings, and if you basically cast a little pellet like that, and then you've got a ready-made circular pellet, and you simply get a hammer and flatten it, and that's another way of making a blank. That blank will be much more circular. These coins were produced about AD 275 to 285, so late in the 3rd century AD. This, to put it in context, is not a particularly good time for the Roman Empire. You've got civil wars going on, you've got massive inflation, debasement of the coinage, and so things are not looking good. Although, having said that, in Britain we've not got evidence for the sorts of problems we know were going on in the continent, where you've got peasant uprisings, you've got barbarian incursions over the River Rhine, you've got all sorts of problems going on. Britain does seem to be spared that, but it's not spared the hyperinflation and the debasement of the coinage that the continent has. It happens across the empire because you've got no mints in Britain for a start in this period. So we're not making our own currency. We're reliant on foreign mints importing coins to pay the troops and so forth. So the economic problems hit Britain just the same as they hit the continent. There is a massive need for small change. It's difficult to understand today, where we've got credit cards, cheques, all sorts of different ways of paying with your phone, whatever. It's very difficult to understand what happens when you have a shortage of small change, where there's simply not enough money to go round. And that was the situation then. So people need these coins, and so where there's a need, you get people making them. But it's not technically legal. We must understand that. They are, after all, making imitations of the official imperial coinage. And of course, the only people who are allowed to do that are the official mints. We don't know why the Hoards went into the ground. We can't tell that after nearly 2,000 years. But we can posit possible answers. It might be that these were a gift to the gods. They're being offered, placed in the ground as an offering to the gods, perhaps hoping that their enterprise will go well. Or it might be that since these are not technically legal, they're being buried in haste because the authorities are on the way. So it would have been incriminating to be found making these things, although an awful lot of it goes on. These coins, despite the fact that they are made of bronze, they don't look very nice, they are nonetheless a hoard of coins. They've gone into the ground at the same time, so they constitute a hoard, and because there are more than 10 of them, they constitute a case of treasure. So if you find treasure, whether it's a hoard of Roman bronze coins or an object of gold or silver, excluding coins, single coins that is, more than 300 years old, you have a statutory obligation to report it to your local fines liaison officer. Our fines liaison officer in Norfolk is Helen Geek, Dr. Helen Geek, based at the Shire Hall in Norwich, and if you find a case of treasure, contacting her is what you need to do.